morning. What we do today is, first we will take up a brief discussion about yesterday's paper. Several people have started asking, calling, writing, and then we will continue with the rest of the class. No? Title with which we are dealing with today is the Trends in UPSC Anthropology 2020 paper. See, this is something like in a crisp and short form. I am trying to give you the overall trends in the paper. Individual question-wise, discussion, as if we call entire paper discussion, we will be doing at a later point of time. But right now, my focus is on trying to tell you what exactly has happened in yesterday's paper. It can be seen as a beautiful new year beginning, and people have been dawned with new kind of awareness, awakening after the paper has come, and people started to see whether what we have discussed in the class has matched with what UPSC has done. At the outset, I'll have to say this, that what kind of service you are going to be in and how well you are going to enjoy the service once you are selected, that's a different story. But then the way UPSC frames questions is really mind-blowing, and it is all entertaining, and that's the reason why it's after all UPSC ante ingem ledu kind of. So we would see what has happened. And when I talk about the various things in the paper, I will time and again be referring to particular batches and particular documents where we have discussed such kind of trends, such kind of questions. Okay. See, first of all, I have to tell you this, that many a times you listen to people who make comment, or they try to state that UPSC is like UPSC Anthropology need not have to be done in a very deep way. It is not after all a PhD kind of a thing. But then you will have to understand that a comprehensive, in-depth understanding of the subject is very much essential. So, and the way questions are actually framed within the boundary of the syllabus, to what depth an examiner can go, that was portrayed in the paper. Okay. So there are a few things that you will have to actually keep in mind. And these are the two things that I always tell the students. One is that you'll have to have a very deep insight into the subject, and whatever concepts that you are learning, they have to be applied to particular situations. Because as we see that more and more questions are appearing from applied aspect of anthropology. This was said by me in the last couple of years. I've been telling the students that first you learn the concepts. Once you learn the concepts, you can play with them in the exam. And do not try to always look at the syllabus and try to memorize the things in 1, 2, 3, 4 points. That would not do well. And I also said this to you as well in the last few days, that do not undermine the general discussions that we do in the class. At one point of time, I was talking about, in the last year's batches, I was talking about this cockfights and guides kind of question that I was talking about to you also. And in the last batch that had ended, I mean the November 2019, many of them have actually appeared in the main this time. We were talking about what is called experiential anthropology. Right now, the question papers are not still circulated to you. Maybe after the class or tomorrow you would be getting the question papers, so that we will keep looking at the questions time and again when we do the class. This topic of experiential anthropology, we find this in paper 1, section 2. They have asked in 5C, experiential ethnography. I was saying at that time that whenever a new branch emerges, a new trend, a new concept emerges, that has to be given a NI that has to be given attention, so that occasionally the small discussions that we do in the class that might come up as a 10 marker, even without you having prepared thoroughly on that particular topic, you will be in a position to answer the questions. Okay. So from that perspective, that's what I was talking about, the emerging discussions and whatever is happening in the journals, in the new trends that are emerging, that you will have to keep an eye on them. And something that is really inseparable from here, inescapable in your preparation, is interlinking of the two papers, interlinking of various concepts. There are certain ways, very beautifully they have framed the questions. I would be taking some of the questions and trying to explain to you how things were. But before all that, what I have to say is, the moment people have looked at the paper, the problem was the very first question, which seemed to have for most of the students something that they have not heard of. And that very first question, as it is read as Natufian culture. Natufian culture is something related to archaeology, basically. See, many people who have done the courses, who have studied anthropology, they know the value of archaeological anthropology for the exam. And you have seen in the old papers that sometimes 150, 125 marks out of 500 are being asked from archaeology itself. And that has been a trend even in this year's exam. We see number of questions both in paper 1 and paper 2 coming from archaeology. But then see, first and foremost thing is, the exam also plays on your psyche, challenges your stability, mental stability. And the moment you see something that you have not heard of before, do not judge the paper based on one single 10 marker. Okay? Because the rest of the paper is there for you to deal with. And that is where you will have to maintain your morale high and go to the later questions. That is very, very important. And that's where many people have lost the war. That's where you will have to be. You will have to prepare yourself for this kind of an odd situation. And then you will have to go into seeing which are the questions that are in your premise and which you can handle with that kind of a comfort. That is one. When it comes to the second major thing, and this is where I am going to give you a couple of examples from the paper, beautiful ones. Many times I say this to the students that you will have to know various terms, various ways in which the same content can be asked. See, at one point of time, there was one term that was asked in the exam called swedening. Many people did not know the meaning of swedening. But then they knew the answer, they didn't know the question. And I'll read out one question for you now, so that I would try to explain to you how this had happened. If at all you are looking at the question paper, this is paper 1, 3B. I'm reading out for you. The question reads as, demographic and epidemiological consequences with a rise in food production and sedentism. I repeat the question, demographic and epidemiological consequences with rise in food production and sedentism. In fact, when you look at this question, you might think in different ways. Maybe they are talking about epidemiology in the context of COVID, and also because there is a term sedentism. You are rather becoming movementless and kind of you are getting restricted and things like that. Many students try to answer it from that perspective, which is altogether wrong. This kind of a thing in the November 2019 batch and the one that we have finished in June 2020, we had discussed some topics such as what are the consequences of primitive man shifting from hunting gathering and hunting gathering living to sedentary agricultural living. So when agriculture had emerged, meaning when Neolithic revolution has come, with the Neolithic revolution, what are the kinds of situations that he had faced? Whether either in terms of social aspects or in terms of health constraints, because when you are shifting from a hunting gathering to a sedentary agricultural living, we see that there is falling nutritional standards and falling health standards and various other things that occur. And basically the question has been asked in the context of what is the result of Neolithic revolution. Did you understand? But then he is trying to ask the question in such a fashionable way and trying to definitely pull your leg. Throughout the paper he had been pulling your leg. And you should be there wise enough to experiment, to understand, to see in various positions from various corners of the subject in what context you could be asking this. And also we should say this to you. Generally what happens is that whenever he is asking a question, occasionally we find in UPSC anthropology the topics are repeated. Sometimes within the same paper, sometimes across the two papers. So I was saying that here the question was regarding what is the result of Neolithic revolution, consequences of it. And there are a good lot of theories, etc., that we have done. Now in this particular case, if you see paper 2, in paper 2 7b, there is one question called Neolithic culture. So I am reading out the complete question for you. The question reads as, discuss the characteristic features of Neolithic culture in India. So what is happening in the first paper, he is talking about the consequence of Neolithic revolution, and then in the second paper he is talking about what are the characteristics of Neolithic culture. Same question being asked at two places. And also you see, before the examination we try to tell you, see, this is the topic that is very important for the current year. There are various bases based on which we try to give such kind of a prediction. Now when I give the prediction, some people end up asking me what are the subtopics that I'll have to see from there. Suppose I said in the last list of areas, language is something that is very, very important. When I say language, there are many facets of language. And from language we see that huge lot of questions were asked. I'll read out some of them. So it all started with, there is one question in paper 1b. Many people did not do this, Sapir's hypothesis. Actually when you say Sapir's hypothesis, he is talking about how language frames the behavior of the people, how language builds the culture, how your behavior with the other people is actually gauged by your language. So that in your syllabus, if you can see your syllabus in chapter 7 paper 1, we have a statement there called social context of use of language. The social context of use of language is in one place asked as Sapir's hypothesis in question number 1, and you can see in paper 1 7a that reads as, explain how variations in language usage is related to social inequality. Explain how variations in language usage is related to social inequality. So what is happening there? Both of them are dealing with almost a similar thing, but at one place it is asked for 10 marks and it is restricting to Sapir's hypothesis alone, and the second one is much more wider, generic kind of a concept. So the bottom line is that when I am telling this particular topic is important, do not try to filter out from there. This is not the end of it. The question of language was asked elsewhere also. In paper 2 you have two questions. One he says Dravidian languages, the other he says linguistic minorities. I will give you the number also. Question number 1D in paper 2, Dravidian languages. And question 2C talks about linguistic classification of Indian tribes. So you can actually see at 4 different places you find the question on language coming. In paper 1 2 questions, in paper 2 2 questions. So whenever we mention that one topic is important, try to see to it that there's one more question. This also tried to confuse the student. Okay? See, there are marriage rules, marriage regulations, there is one topic. And then elsewhere in your syllabus in biological anthropology, you find chromosomal aberrations. Okay. At the place where chromosomal aberrations is there, the complete title goes as a consanguineous mating and related chromosomal aberrations. Now what he is trying to do here is, I am reading out in paper 17C. How do marriage rules impact the gene pool of populations? How do marriage rules impact the gene pool of populations? So two different things, one from sociological anthropology he is picking up one word, and from biological anthropology he is picking up the other word. Based on which is your comfort zone, you will tilt there. Suppose you have studied marriage rules thoroughly before going to the exam, you would want to write on marriage rules. And after writing entirely about marriage rules, you will see the later half, gene pool of population, you will add one or two statements towards the end. Or suppose you have studied gene pool of populations thoroughly, you will eliminate marriage rules and write extensively on gene pool. But actually this question is about consanguineous and non-consanguineous mating and how genetic frequencies get altered and what are the results of such kind of marriage rules. Are you following? So it calls for 1 minute of spending on the question to exactly identify what the examiner is asking without jumping in to write whatever you feel in the first minute. Okay. Let me take you to the other ones. There is one that is we'll have to see to it that anthropological theory is not missed out, the strength of anthropological theory. There have been misconceptions among students that core thought-based questions are less in frequency kind of things. This is a different story, that in every question you will have to give thinkers, that is one. Nevertheless, if you see the kind of questions that are being asked, there are a couple of questions, if I may read. Apart from Sapir in the first question, there was one culture personality school. The question you can see in paper 1, section 1, in question number 4A. Discuss various anthropological approaches to the study of personality and culture. Very comprehensive and beautiful question. See, there are n number of direct questions as well. It's only that a wise choice have to be made. See, the people who are strong in the concept, who are able to play with the concept in different ways, they can pick up the ones that have a higher weightage of interpretative questions. On the other hand, there are n number of almost equal amount of direct questions as well. If you think that you are in a position to handle direct questions well, these are the kind of questions that you would pick up. So you have culture, personality, school, and the rest of the questions also there are very direct. I read out one more question in that same question number 4. Explain various types of locomotion patterns among non-human primates. So that's a pretty direct question, locomotion, whether that is brachiation, quadrupedal gait, bipedalism, erect posture kind of things. So this is also a pretty direct kind of a question. Now, but then there is one more, a question of Victor Turner. In question number 1, Victor Turner and liminality. In your case, in your batch, I am to discuss this particular topic in today's class actually. Victor Turner's liminality. So there are 3 proper questions coming from anthropological thought. Nevertheless, there are certain questions that are on the sidelines of your syllabus. I was telling in the last batch that at least one question from primatology, and that too based on women researchers, women field workers, has to come this year. And Jane Goodall had figured out in this particular paper, Jane Goodall's contributions to the understanding of primate behavior, because last year Jane Goodall had launched her online course for the first time. At 80 plus years, she had launched the first online course with all her researchers being packed there with all the videos of chimpanzees and the kind of stuff, and that has become very, very popular. And from that video being released, from that course being released, I was waiting for a question to come on female primatologists, and I am celebrating my own day because of this particular question being asked. So basically, you know, when we are predicting, the predictions are for the next couple of years based on what kind of articles are appearing. And coming to the other questions, in the latest journals, you know, starting from late 2019, we see that huge lot of writings have started appearing on Darwin. And there was one occasion where Darwin's original writings were found, you know, the lost writings were found. That became a big news. And then Darwin was once again questioned in the last year, and several publications have come. So that's where the question of Darwinian and post-Darwinian writings and how they have led to the understanding of synthetic theory, that was the question that was asked. So basically the bottom line is that the student here should not panic. That's the basic idea behind me talking about this. Do not get panicky looking at the kind of, you know, jargon that he is using. But then he is trying to ask within the frame of the subject itself, only to see to what depth you have actually learnt the subject. And see, because COVID is there, due to COVID we see huge lot of literature being churned out everywhere in all the anthropology journals. And of course, you know, other social sciences also were trying to contribute to the COVID writings. And obviously, you know, an office, a very august office like UPSC should not neglect that very opportunity of asking a question on such a, you know, huge episode that has happened across the globe, and hence UPSC had asked. And the same title, see, a couple of videos I had released earlier on COVID related anthropology. There I was trying to list out certain journal articles, and one of them was this: impact of infectious diseases on indigenous populations. That is asked at 6A in paper 1, impact of infectious diseases on indigenous populations. That article said indigenous communities, he just made it indigenous populations. But then whatever is mentioned in that particular article holds good for, no, this answer. Mind it that whenever he is asking a question, there should be something that must have happened in the last year. Do not undermine the dynamism in the subject. See, there are a few things, especially coming to paper 2. In paper 2, the beauty is that whatever static and whatever dynamic things are there, all that are included in your regular discussions of anthropology. It doesn't look like, okay, I am reading something current affairs, I am reading something static. Everything is a combination of that. And we see the topic of caste, for example. Caste appeared at huge number of places. I am trying to look at caste in your paper. Characteristics of a caste system. That is 3A, characteristics of caste system. There is something called reasons of caste violence in India, and then concept of dominant caste. You have provisions related to scheduled castes. So you can see there, and then there is something called discuss the effect of job reservations in alleviation of unemployment, kind of thing. So what is happening here is caste related things are overloaded, and that is something that is inescapable. And there are a couple of names that have come in paper 2. One of them is highly expected for this year. There is this man called K.S. Singh. K.S. Singh we have used in the classes at least 3 or 4 times in the previous batches, and I was making a mention there that, you know, K.S. Singh can be an independent question, and that's where you can see in question number 1C, contributions of K.S. Singh to Indian anthropology. That's a very short and cute one. A person who belongs to evolutionary school, whatever he presents in evolutionary pattern only. Suppose tribal movements are there, he writes in a evolutionary pattern. NGOs, one of your topics in your syllabus, growth of NGOs in India, he tries to present in an evolutionary pattern. So there are 3 or 4 major areas that he had worked on. In everywhere we see that he was working in an evolutionary fashion. That was one. Religion was one. On religion we were expecting good number of questions. 2 major questions had come. One was impact of Islam on Indian society, and the other one was impact of Hinduism on tribal people of India. So these were quite expected ones. So what happens is, when you see the paper, you will have to first identify which are the ones that I was telling you this, the ones that you may not be able to touch. You first round them off, and then you go to the ones that are very highly familiar, but then the combination might exist. Based on that, you would go for a risk minimizing. Sometimes what happens is, certain things that you have struck off, sometimes the ones that you have struck off, say for example marriage rules wala question ho gaya, ya fir Neolithic revolution wala agricultural impact or epidemiological impact wala question ho gaya. In the first go you may not be able to understand, but then when you are giving it a thought, maybe perhaps the statements that you must have read, you must have written in the class, those things might come to your mind, and then maybe a new dawn might occur, and hence you would be in a position to. First and foremost thing you should keep in mind is that we should try to attempt all the questions in the exam to the extent possible. Yahan par 10-20 marks ka shayad you can take a risk. So even if I say that out of 250 marks, if you are writing the exam for 230 marks, something that positively you should look for is plus 50 to 60%. 20 marks aapke chale gaye, so you should be able to get more than 60%. So that's how things are. And sometimes what happens is that if you are understanding the question in a right manner, that itself is appreciative for the examiner. When 10 other people are not in a position to appreciate and understand the meaning of the question, you are somebody who had given the actual understanding of the question. There, he would be marking you apart from the other crowd, and that's where your prospects are. Okay. And as the days progress, in a week's time or so, I will be posting a few videos on the YouTube where individual questions or 2 or 3 questions I will be picking up, and I will be posting there. You keep following them. And there is one new series that I am going to start on the YouTube. Previously I had done one series, that is Anthropology Through Vocabulary. And this is the second season that we will be doing, Anthropology Through Vocabulary, incorporating the latest terms. And this series is going to be slightly different from the previous one. In the previous series, I was only giving the meaning of that term and leaving it there. But in this particular series, what we will be doing is, we will give you the word, we will give the meaning of it, and then the reason why you should be studying it for your UPSC exam, because I was doing that in general for the common crowd, not simply UPSC but other exam goers and other general public also. But this one I am doing especially for the UPSC people. So whenever you are going through this Anthropology Through Vocabulary Season 2, you should be making a note of in what context we will be using that particular term, and there some of the studies I will be incorporating, and maybe perhaps I would also be giving you the source from where you should be doing that particular topic, so that in addition to what you are doing in the classroom, that would be an added thing. Okay? Thank you, sir.